Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Morning, welcome to Financial Issues. I'm your host, Shana. Thanks for tuning in today. We're so glad that you are here. Well, Financial Issues is a ministry that educates people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. You can partner with our ministry and learn how to build your own biblically responsible investment portfolio. And you'll always be encouraged in the ways of stewardship. You'll be reminded that God owns everything, that we are called to honor God with everything that we have, our time, talent, and treasure. And we'll give you some practical ways that you can do that. Well, we are in the tail end of our year-end campaign. September 30th marks the end of our fiscal year here at Financial Issues, and this is the time of the year that we traditionally raise the bulk of donations from our listeners and our partners. Throughout the year, you'll always hear us engaging our listeners and what we call funding the light. That's the twofold part of our mission, to encourage you to be joyful and generous and obedient givers. And, we often encourage you with verses of scripture to do giving, but, from time to time, we'll give you good ministries that you can support, like Preborn Ministries, this ministry, and others. But we don't often give you a lot of instruction on where to give. We believe that is between you and the Lord, that the Lord owns it all. And if you ask him, he is more than happy to tell you where you can deploy your finances into the kingdom and be the most effective. On today's show, we are going to talk about giving through appreciated stocks. So that's an alternative way to give, some of the benefits of that. We're also going to hear from Alex McFarland. Alex is going to join us to discuss finances and faith, and we're going to get to your calls and questions. The first two callers today will receive a copy of the 10 Commandments of Investing. It's a devotional by our late founder, Dan Celia. So that number, if you want to get in the call queue, 610-363-1110 is the phone number. Our stewardship verse today comes from Leviticus 25:35 and 36. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and sojourner, and he shall live with you. Take no interest from him or profit, but fear your God, that your brother may live beside you. So this is just another example of how the church body, the body of believers, is called to take care of the poor. It is not the government's role to do welfare. Government is part of the world system. So you've got the world system and you've got the kingdom system. As Christians, we have chosen to migrate into the kingdom of heaven, to live in the kingdom of heaven, to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. But the government is part of the world system, which is under the control of Satan. So that's why that explains a lot right there in just that one statement. Why you see so much corruption in government. That's why you see politicians lie. That's why you see people really become dependent on the government, look to the government to fulfill all of their needs rather than looking to their creator. So the government is corrupt. When people become dependent on the government has taken the place of God in their lives. So the church is part of the kingdom of God. We are the hands and the feet of Christ. When people are helped by the body of Christ, they learn that all provision comes from God, even if it was administered by the hands of a person who loves Jesus. What do you think, Sam?
That's good, Shana. I agree completely. And, it's a core commandment for the people of God that they be generous. Old Testament, the people of Israel were to be generous for their neighbors, and it's true for us today as well. The church needs to be the one to be generous. As you said, it's not the government's job to do welfare. It's the church's job to do that. So I hope we would seek out the opportunity to do that today. And, Shana, it does lead to our topic of the day, which is this idea of this alternative ways to give and be generous. And one of those, I know, is through appreciated stock.
Yep. Well, financial issues, as I mentioned, serves the saints. We minister to the saints. We teach stewardship. We remind us of our call to fund the light and defund darkness. By the way, if you're a partner, we send out a partner alert to sell a stock because it is no longer biblically responsible. Check your emails. I'll come back to more on that later. But, God honors those who honor him, and sometimes that honor shows up as financial gain. It does not always. We're not obligating God to give us money because we follow his laws or do good things. But, perhaps sometimes this gain even comes in the form of a capital gain. Yep. And so what we see is that the government will tax us when we incur a capital gain. Yes. So, that's another rabbit trail I won't go down today. Yeah. So, what we have to remember when we see appreciated stock is that we can take zero credit for that gain. It was God who gave us the ability to work to get the money that we invested, or it was the blessing of God that money came to us through inheritance or some other way. The Holy Spirit convicted our hearts to invest in a biblically responsible way because we want to honor God. God gave us wisdom to choose good investments that became profitable in this case where we have a capital gain. So we should give glory and honor to the Lord first and foremost for the increase that we experience.
Yep, that's good stuff, Shana. You'd mentioned taxes earlier. I have to remind myself this too, that paying taxes on gains is not actually a bad thing. It means it's a good thing, even though it's annoying. So that little disclaimer there. But speaking of taxes, what tax advantages and other advantages actually are available to us when we give this way from appreciated stock?
Yeah, something really occurred to me when you just said that. It's like, we think about paying taxes, right? We think about earning income. We know some money's got to go back to the government. We think if we get a gain, some money's got to go back to the government. That's a great way to teach us that to pay money to whom it's due, right? We're
that's right.
Pretty resigned to the fact that we have to pay Caesar what is Caesar's. Yeah. But are we, happy and resigned to the calling that we have to pay God what is God's as well? Well, so to answer your question, though, advantages, some of the advantages, if you give appreciated stock, is that you can potentially avoid a capital gains tax. So if you're in the 12% tax bracket, and I won't go into all the details there, the capital gains rate is 0. So if you're in that 12% tax bracket, including the gain that you're going to be getting, then and this is for a long-term capital gain, so you have to remember that you have to own this security for at least a year and a day to get these kind of rates. Otherwise, it's subject to ordinary income rates, just whatever tax bracket you're in. But a long-term capital gain, is only 15% of your gain if you're in, or if your income is under some upwards of $500,000 if you're married or single. So for most people, the capital gains rate is going to be 15%. If you're in those highest tax brackets, then the capital gains rate is 20%. Plus, if you're a high earning individual, you could also be subject to a net investment income tax of 3.8%. So, the max you could pay there would be like 23.8%. Now, so let's say that you've invested $10,000 and it's grown to $60,000. You have a $50,000 capital gain. If you sell your shares to do your giving, you will incur that capital gains tax on your profit. Now, if you gift your shares instead of selling them and then giving the cash, not only do you not pay capital gains tax on that $50,000 profit, you could potentially save, if you're in the 15% tax bracket, $7,500 on taxes. If you're in the 20% tax bracket, 10% on taxes. If you're in that high earners bracket that we talked about, you could save almost $12,000 on taxes just by gifting the shares rather than selling them and then giving the proceeds. So on top of that tax savings, you also get a tax deduction if you itemize your taxes. You could also, even if you don't itemize, you could also avoid triggering that extra tax on Social Security if your capital gain would cause you to breach that limit where your Social Security becomes taxable.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, Shana. Yeah, really good. Quickly here, before we go to the end of the segment, what are some things that we need to do in order to be generous with our appreciated stock, step by step, maybe choosing to give the proceeds to FISM? How do we need to know how to do this?
Yeah, it's super easy. I mean, you want to check your holding period, make sure you've held it at least a year and a day, and then you just contact the organization that you want to give. They'll give you a routing and a account number, and then you just contact the company that holds your securities. You give them that information. You'll probably have to sign a form, and then they'll send the shares from your account over to the receiving organization. You may want to give the receiving organization a heads up and let them know that it's coming and that it's from you, so that they can get that documented and you get your giving statement. Awesome. All right, folks, we got to take a break, but we hope that you're going to stick with us because we have Alex McFarland coming up next. Such a treat for you guys.
My name is Valtasia. I have 5 kids total. I was basically a single mom. I didn't have an address to my name. And here it comes, that not just one baby I'm finna have, it was 3. I honestly was not gonna keep them. I had it in my mind, deep down inside, that I couldn't do it. I came straight abortion minded. What changed my mind was I talked to the counselor and, very encouraging. They'll also tell me, you're not going to be alone. If you need anything, reach out to us or anything. I was amazed. I definitely have a challenge of having my babies. A lot of people will ask me, how do you do that? How do you maintain? Only thing I can say is prayer. Prayer really, really worked.
To donate, just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or go to financialissues.org and click on the preborn banner.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We've got a special treat for you right now. We have a guest today, Alex McFarland. He is a nationally syndicated author, speaker, and host of the Alex McFarland Show and co-host of Exploring the Word. He does such a great job equipping the church, helping people be able to explain their faith and understand their faith. He does great work with apologetics, and he's here today to help us talk about the importance of giving. Alex, welcome. It's great to have you back on the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be with you. And I love the subject of using money for sharing the gospel, using money and finances for Christ's purposes. And that there are a lot of blessings in there when we really take it to heart and trust God with our giving.
Amen. Well, Financial Issues is a little bit of a different ministry. We're not making disciples of the nations and feeding the poor and things like that. Our mission is really to call out and raise up the financiers of the kingdom. So to encourage people to be joyful and generous givers. But, you use the platform that God has given you, your knowledge of the word, your ability to communicate, to spread the gospel boldly. Could you speak to the importance of using our money in particular to do that same thing?
Well, God bless you, and God bless the vital ministry that you are doing, because a lot of believers are in financial bondage. And I think that there are some people that are just resigned that they're going to be poor. And, I know a little bit about this firsthand, Shana, because I grew up on a farming family in the South. We were very poor growing up, even though my mom and dad were Christians. But here's the thing. I do believe that God wants to prosper every believer, and giving is a stewardship issue. There are certain resources in life. It's been said, time, talent, treasure, testimony. We all have 168 hours in the week. We all have some gifts and abilities, some skills. And then we all have some financial resources. And Malachi 3 is a very famous passage about tithing. It's been said, when people ask me, Shana, is a Christian supposed to tithe? And many ministers have said that a Christian under grace should at least do as much as an Israelite under the law. I really think 10% is just the starting point. And you cannot outgive God. The more you give to your church, to missions, the more God is going to bless you. I mean, it's not original with me. It's been said that you give to God with a spoon and he'll give back to you with a shovel. I really believe that. And as our faith grows, our giving can grow. God will entrust things to us. We're not owners, we're stewards. We're managers. And I think one of the most primary stewardship propositions is the way that we handle money.
That's good. Well, Alex, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here. So, okay. You're on the air and you're feeding the sheep, you're enlightening the people, you're equipping people with your teachings. But when people are listening to you and hearing you and, they're hearing from the Lord, what are some of the expenses that your ministry incurs that people don't necessarily think about? What does it cost you to be able to get to be out there and do all of these things?
Well, thank you for asking. One of the expenses that we have incurred now for 20 years that people might not think about is liability insurance. Shana, whenever I rent an auditorium, we have to get an insurance bond. Because if heaven forbid, somebody tripped over a speaker cable or fell down, they might sue us. In fact, last week, a church reached out to me for advice. Somebody fell down in a bathroom at this church. Nobody saw it. It was during a funeral. But this church is being sued for more than $100,000 because of an alleged accident. So for every event we do, and certainly every camp, like we just did 7 youth camps this summer, and we had 1,200 teenagers in 7 youth camps. Well, every one of those 7 youth camps we had, and it was about $3,000, because when you've got, 200-300 teenagers for a week at summer camp, believe me, you need liability insurance. And when we do conferences, so we spend thousands of dollars a year on insurance. People probably know this. Our ministry spends probably $150,000, $170,000 a year on airplane tickets, just, getting to and from. So the gospel is free, but it does take resources to deliver and convey that free message, as you know as well.
That's great. Thanks for sharing those details. I think that's going to really help some people start to think about things that they don't think about, because in the days of, everybody's a podcaster, everybody's an influencer these days. You can spend a couple $100 and set up shop in your garage and, boom, you're on the air. But, when you have a large ministry like yours and you're reaching a lot of people and you're serving a lot of people, there are a lot of costs that come with that. So, Alex, you're an expert in the field of apologetics, which is the practice of defending the truth of the Christian faith. In your debates with unbelievers, what are some of the questions that you get about finances, and how do you respond?
Great question. There is the perception that preachers are just, quote, in it for the money. You may remember probably 25 years ago, there were some relatively high-profile scandals. And look, in any profession, there can be people that are crooked, But here's the thing: Well, do you remember the rock band U2? Do you remember that? The band U2? They had a song one time, and Bono, the lead singer of U2, had very sarcastically, he said something about TV evangelists, and there was a line, quote, "My God isn't short of cash, mister." Well, of course not. God owns everything. But the Bible does say that those that preach the gospel should live off the gospel. The worker is worthy of their hire. And I will say this, and I even had a minister, a journalist from Gannett newspapers agree with me on this. Most pastors and ministers and church staff put in 80-hour weeks at least. Preachers are at the hospital at 3 a.m. when people are sick and need care, encouragement. I know as a minister, I've bailed people out of jail, fed the hungry. It's a joy. We're doing it for Jesus. Matthew 25 says that we give a cup of cold water in his name. But to your question, skeptics at universities, they love to be very accusatory about people in ministry. But let me say this. I was in Atlanta, Georgia in the spring of 24, so earlier this year, and I was on a show being interviewed, and somebody was accused for saying, preachers steal money and all this stuff. And maybe some do. Doctors, lawyers, business people, politicians sometimes steal money. But here's the point. I did some research. I went to my hotel. I was going to be interviewed again. Listen to this. This is amazing. Right now, the GDP of America is about $33 trillion. They estimate, something like $33 trillion will flow through our economy this year. Now, philanthropic giving is about 3.1 or 2 trillion with a T. That's a lot of giving. Do you know what's amazing, Shana, as you probably know? And I made some phone calls. I did some research. 80%, and it's really more like 85% of all the giving done, 85% of $3 trillion this year is given by people of faith, Protestant, Catholic, Christians. Look, the orphanages, the soup kitchens, the clothes closets, and yes, the gospel, Bibles, broadcasting. Here's the thing. I've traveled the whole wide world. I'm sure you have as well. When I am in the interior of Africa and I find a well or a hospital, it was always given by like Samaritan's Purse, World Help, World Vision, Baptist Men on Mission. I've never been in South America and found wells and hospitals built by American atheists or the ACLU. Or People United for the Separation of Church and State. 80% plus of all the benevolent giving in America, which trickles out to the world, it's given by Christians. Why? Yeah. Because when we honor our fellow human beings, we're honoring the one whose image they bear, Jesus Christ. And so the skeptics love to throw stones, but guess who's out there feeding the hungry, clothing the cold, and yes, winning the souls? It's God's people.
That's great. Those are some really great statistics, and I think you make a really good point there. There's a saying that says people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Right. So when we get out there and we do those things that are just practical, once we meet the immediate needs of a person, then they're open to hearing. Then they start wondering, why are you here? Why would you help me? Why would you do this? Why would you give us money? And that's just a perfect opportunity to say, hey, we're just the hands and feet of Jesus. Jesus is the one, God is the one who's making the provision for you because he loves you. And it's a great opportunity to share the gospel. Well, really quick, tell us how people can find your ministry to hear more encouragement and apologetics from you.
Well, thanks very much. Just my name is the website, alexmcfarland.com. I've been on the road preaching for 25 years and speaking. We do a lot of biblical worldview seminars in churches. We do summer camps. We do radio and television. We ship out thousands of books every year. And I give God the glory. We average here in the USA about 7,500 people a year trusting Christ and getting born again. And of course, many times more than that of Christians that we're trying to equip to defend the faith. So alexmcfarland.com, and I appreciate everyone's prayers.
Yeah, and there's a QR code. Does that take them right to your site? Mm-hmm. QR code up on the screen? Okay, great. So all you techie people, just point your camera there and at that little QR code, and you'll get right over to Alex. Well, Alex, thanks so much for being here today. You have really encouraged us. Well, folks, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries a short version of the show, we wish you a good day. For the rest of you, stay tuned. We're going to be back with more financial issues, and get right to your calls, 610-363-1110.
Noah surrendered to the radical call to build an ark. Abraham had to leave his friends and family and the place where he lived to experience what God had for him. Both Abraham and Noah had a choice to be obedient. Will you abandon investments in your portfolio that support abortion, gambling, and pornography? Learn how you can invest biblically and abandon investments that dishonor God. Become a Financial Issues partner today. Go to financialissues.org/join to learn more.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
Initially, when we became members, I thought, what if this doesn't work? I mean, we're going to give up this whole concept of insurance, and we're going to trust God and His people. And it was like, yeah, well, of course. I'm going to trust an insurance company to come through for me, or I'm going to trust the church to come through for me. And that's a no-brainer. I love getting the monthly share that I give to each month that has the name of a real person and their real medical concerns and a prayer request, for them. If I have a need, I know I can go get care. I can see the providers I want to see. I don't have to worry if they're in my network. And if we need medical care, the Samaritan is there.
A community of Christians paying one another's medical bills. For more information, go to financialissues.org and click the Samaritan Ministries banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for sticking with us. I got to make a correction, folks. That QR code that was up on the screen, that will not take you to Alex McFarland. That takes you to our page. I just assumed that it was to Alex McFarland because I didn't see it on the screen. Now I see it. It's up there again. So if you point your camera at that, it's going to take you to our campaign where you'll see that we've now raised we're a little over 70.
We're up over 72,000 as of this morning, Shana, which is great. I feel like the FISM audience just waits a little bit till the end to really bring that final push home. But yeah, we're doing a great job. 72,000. We got 7 new monthly soldiers, which is awesome. So we're just praising the Lord for that.
In my experience, that's how the Lord works.
Yeah, it does. It seems that way. Read the Old Testament.
He wants you to savor the experience.
That's right. What did he do with Gideon? Oh, that's right. He trimmed the army down to a couple guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you to all of you who have contributed so far. We've had some really, really generous gifts, and we appreciate that so much. If you are a partner, by the way, check out the alert that was sent out just this morning. It's a sell alert for a company that has been on our list, our buy list in the past. Not recently, but it has been in the past. So if you're an older partner, you may have it. But we've been watching it for a little while. We decided to reach out to the company because of some information that we found about them supporting the Sarah and Tegan Foundation, which in the email, I believe there's a link that takes you over to see what that is all about. But that's an organization that, nonprofit organization that raises money from people to support the causes of helping children become comfortable with their LGBTQ lifestyle. So they do things like run summer camps and all of these things. They are pushing the lie, which they believe to be the truth, but they are pushing the lie that you get to choose your own gender. God didn't assign your gender to you at birth, or actually when He knitted you together in the womb at conception. But that is a choice that you get to make. And, if you're having bad feelings about the choices that you're making, well, that's not your conscience. That's everybody else's fault for being wrong and telling you that you're wrong, or hopefully not making fun of you, but I guess some people do. But, that's not any of that. That's just, the gender confusion that you're feeling, and they help you work through those feelings and embrace and accept the sinful choices that you are making. They reinforce your decision or the propensity to sin. So we don't want to be part of that. We don't want any of the money that we invest or the profits that the company would make to go to support that kind of garbage. So we did reach out to the company and ask them, because it was sort of old. It was from 2022. So we asked them if they were still doing it. And their response was sort of a non-response, really. It was almost like Kamala Harris wrote a word salad for them. Started out with, I grew up in a small town. I grew up in I'm kidding. It didn't.
Great. Anytime my wife asks me to do a chore around the house now, Shana, I'm just going to say, you know what, honey, listen, I grew up in a small town. And then just go on some rant about how none of it makes any sense.
Yeah. So the response really didn't. It was a lot of words to say, basically, yeah, we're still doing it. We're going to. Yeah. So that's basically what I read between the lines. So we're out. Check the alert. It's MA66 if you want to go, if you're a partner, want to go look it up. Otherwise you can read or you can consider donating your shares to the ministry. We'll get rid of them for you, and you won't have to pay any capital gains tax on them. So, awesome. We're happy to sell them. All right. Well, let's get to Joseph. He's been waiting so patiently. Hi, Joseph. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hey, Joseph, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Good morning.
My question is concerning fixed income, specifically ETF 7. Now, we're in the 75 plus model, and we are partners. There's a percentage designated to ETF 7. Does that percentage mean a percentage of your portfolio or a percentage of the sector?
Yeah, it's a suggested upper limit for the portfolio. So if you multiply that percentage times your entire portfolio, then and you'll see that kind of reflected whenever you put it into the tracker. You know, if you go all the way to the end there, it figures up the percentage of your portfolio.
Okay, so it will be. I know in the statement above that you specified that those items should be a percentage of the sector.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so that answers my question, and I thank you very much. You've helped us tremendously since we have become members of 2019, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Awesome,
we appreciate
Joseph.
your continued support.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, brother. God bless.
All right.
Jen,
We got some more questions?
I think we got time for a couple.
So Joseph
with the ag.
gets a copy of that
Yeah, he
devotional.
does.
We've got one more to give away.
That's right, we do. 10 Commandments of Investing, folks. Don't miss out. This is a great devotion, if you're looking for something quick in the morning, too, that you can read through. Dan's wisdom, biblical wisdom, of course. He co-wrote it with W. Sherrill Babb, former president of Philadelphia Biblical University. So pretty cool.
Awesome.
Shana, our next question here comes from Ron. He's 54. He's saying, we sold our business last November. We have approximately $4 million invested with Northwest Mutual. I'd like to get more involved in the management through financial issues. I'm not certain which asset allocation is right for our situation, and I'd like to have monthly withdrawals for living expenses, approximately $150,000 per year. What advice would you have for Ron?
Yeah, so I would consider the 65 to 75 allocation since you're going to be taking withdrawals. And so the 65 to 75, all of our models actually assume a retirement age of 65, which you're obviously a little bit short of that. But, 65 for us, if you're entering into retirement, that typically marks the period of time when you're going to start to take withdrawals from your portfolio. So it sounds like you're there. You're going to be taking a percentage out of your portfolio every year to provide income for yourself. And so that is really more synonymous with the 65 to 75 rather than looking at the age model. So that's why we've started to name the models in addition to having the ages there. And it's good to know that 65, for all of the models, the assumption is that 65 is retirement. So that's what I would look at. That's what I would consider there, because as you start to take withdrawals off of a portfolio, the downside volatility hurts a lot more. It's harder to recover from. So you want to, if you kind of shift your focus to protecting on from as much downside volatility, it's much more important to do that than to capture every bit of upside potential. All right. Awesome. I don't know if we have time for another one, right?
Probably not. I'd love to get one in, but we got 30 seconds till the ag here, so we'll maybe wait for the other side of the break.
All right. So, folks, check that alert. Also, while you're there on the website looking at that, find out about Bible study and consider joining Seth on Friday morning. Click on the resources tab and you can get to it that way. And while you're there, go ahead and make your donation to the website, to the year-end campaign. Well, we're about to hear from Craig Haugaard. He's going to come in with the ag report. We're going to take a short break after that, and then we'll be back with more financial issues.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for September 24th. Well, corn rallied over ongoing weather concerns in South America. Here in the U.S., harvest is progressing with about 14% of the crop now out of the field. Now, the river system in the U.S. still has some logistical issues as water levels remain low. But the 7-day outlook puts a little more rain into the eastern Corn Belt and Ohio River Valley, so that may help water levels out. Eastern rail corn values aren't doing much, and the Pacific Northwest is pretty quiet as well. Yesterday, corn had a really big day, with December actually finishing 11 3/4 cents higher at $4.13 1/2 per bushel. Soybeans saw double-digit gains as warm and dry weather persists in Brazil. In the U.S., harvest is moving along with about 13% of the soybean crop already harvested. We've had leaves dropping on 65% of that crop, so it'll be ready quite quickly here. We had November beans up 27 1/4 cents yesterday at $10.39 1/4. Wheat rallied as Australian wheat areas are looking at another another week of hot and dry weather, and we've got a similar story going on in Argentina. In the U.S., spring wheat harvest should be about wrapped up this week, while the Canadian harvest is about 80% complete. Winter wheat planting is on a normal pace with about 25% of that crop now in the ground. At the close yesterday, Minneapolis December wheat was 11 cents higher at $6.19. Kansas City rose by 13 1/4 cents to close at $5.77 1/4, and Chicago was 14 cents higher at $5.82 1/2. Cotton futures spent the day in a really tight trading range. At the closing bell, the December futures were just 8 points lower as we settled at 73.44. Livestock futures all showed some strength. We had December live cattle 62 1/2 cents higher at $183.82 1/2 cents per hundredweight. November feeder cattle were 97 1/2 cents higher as they settled at $242.75 per hundred. We had December lean hog futures were 65 cents higher at the close, ending the day at $74.87 1/2 cents per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures continues to see price consolidation. Yesterday had the October futures ending the day down 12 points at $23.79. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Egg Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plan to learn more about Timothy Plan.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Hey, we've got one more copy of that 10 Commandments devotional written by our late founder, Dan Celia, to give away. 610-363-1110. You will become the lucky new owner of that if you get your call queued up. You'll need to give us a call, though, in the next 1 to 2 minutes to make sure that you get in on this show. Hey, I see a copy out. I see a comment out there. Might have been from the other day, but ask your pastors to support making a pitch for voting. And, I think that's a great idea. I've watched some my pastor does to our congregation. He tells us, what our responsibility is as a citizen of the United States. And, he encourages, he doesn't tell us who to vote for, and we don't either, because we're a nonprofit organization. But, he tells us to vote our values, to see what the platforms say, what the people are saying about the things that are important to the Lord, and vote accordingly. And I've seen some really, I saw a sermon by Pastor Mark Driscoll that was really great. I think he's got a book called Vote for Jesus.
Nice. Yeah, I actually heard, Shana, they had put a sign up at their church in Arizona.
They did.
Said something, was it like Jesus 2024, and they got a bunch of flack for it.
They did.
Yeah.
Even though there's like political signs to the right and left of their church, they got, because it was the name of Jesus.
That's right. Yep.
And so, in response, he decided to minister to the city by having 2,000 more signs printed for his congregation. And his was a really good sermon. It was about, the separation of church and state and what it really is or isn't. And, that the Christians have a right to influence government. We do, because we're citizens and we live here. We have the right to give input, but the state does not have the right to veer into our lane. So that was a great one. And then Matthew Hagee has a good series out right now about the history of voting and what our responsibilities are as Christians. So I'm really super excited that pastors are not cowering to fear that their nonprofit status is going to be taken away. They're doing it the right way. They're not breaking any rules. They're not breaking any laws, and they're not bowing down to the fear. They're encouraging Christians to stand up and to get involved. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Shana, it's nice to see a backswing. Not all pastors did this, but in 2020, there were several big name pastors who came out in support of the vaccine, and they bought into the critical race stuff. And I believe that's just a travesty that even happened, that they did that. So seeing that there are a lot of pastors who rightly are conservative out there, and they're pushing for what matters most, is really good. I mean, none of us is apolitical. So many people think, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm above that. But if you have any sense of morality, then you have a political opinion,
Yeah. So. And that was Driscoll's point. Yeah. He was like, you can't be biblical without being political.
Yeah, that's exactly
if you look at the issues that are going on in this country and you look at what God says about it, you can't be quiet.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff.
All right, Tracy wants a book.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if Tracy's quite ready yet. Tracy's from North Dakota. You want to buy some time, Shana, with a question here we just got from Joe? Joe is on the website, and he's asking about purchasing MF72 and MF59 on his discount brokerage platform to no avail. The platform requires about $100,000 minimum on each of these mutual funds. It exceeds the allocation amount dramatically. I had thought, should I purchase one of the mutuals, meeting the minimum, and then exchanging shares in the Timothy family of products? I do understand that I can purchase A shares from Timothy directly, but I'd hope to maintain assets more centrally, and I also prefer using ETFs. Do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, so I've always been told that the iShares, which is what he's trying to purchase, which says it requires a minimum of $100,000, can only be sold by financial advisors who are charging a fee for management. That's what they were intended for. And I was told that you couldn't buy them on discount brokerage platforms. But then I was told by people who were on discount brokerage platforms that they put in orders and they were able indeed to buy the iShares. So, if you try to push the order all the way through, the warning typically comes up that there's a minimum required, but if you hit send, in my experience, the order typically goes through. So if you can't do that, you can still buy the A-share version in your brokerage account. You just have to pay the upfront sales charge associated with it. So also know that you can't purchase A-shares and then convert them into iShares. It doesn't work. You have to convert or exchange from one fund to another. If you're in A shares, you have to exchange to another A share. You cannot exchange to an I share. So I would say just try to put the order through, go past, the little pop-up that says that the 100,000 minimum is required. Otherwise, then go for the same fund with the A share.
Good stuff, Shana. That's a like-for-like transaction, right? That's what you'd call that, like same type of shares.
Yeah, you have to be to do an exchange, you have to be within the same fund family.
Yeah.
So you couldn't exchange your Fidelity or Vanguard shares for Timothy. That doesn't work. It has to be Timothy funds to do an exchange, and you have to be within the same share class. So A shares for A shares, I shares for I shares, so on and so forth.
Good. I think Tracy's ready now, Shana.
Okay, great. Hi, Tracy. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
You gave me an added blessing this morning when I turned on my Roku and I saw you were giving Dan's book away, 10 Commandments.
You got it, Tracy.
I had looked for a while, and I did find it once in used bookstore, and it was priced $75, so I let it be, but when I turned it on and I saw that, I got very happy.
Tracy, just like your salvation, you get it for $0, man. It's priceless.
Your favorite.
Well, I've had many blessings from FISM. My question is, on preferred stocks, say like 20, 30, 40 years ago, they seemed like they were so much more plentiful than they are now, and now to find them seems harder. Is that just my imagination, or is that actually really happening? And I'll just hang up and I'll listen on the Roku.
Okay. No, Tracy, it's not your imagination. It is harder. That's why we've had a scarcity of them on our list for so long. And even right now, as we've been looking so hard to find them, they're a little bit scarce. And so the reason I think is twofold. One, interest rates have been so very low for such a long time that, companies could borrow money at a low rate without having to issue preferred securities. And there's just so much liquidity out there. So, since COVID especially, the government has printed and spent so much money for COVID. And then on the back of that, there was the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, so much government spending. So what that does is that floods the system with money, and rather than actually needing to borrow money, companies have become so cash rich that they've been buying back their own stock. So definitely not your imagination. It is something real. And thanks for your question, Tracy. And we hope that you enjoy your copy of the 10 Commandments.
It's awesome. By the way, Shana, I should clarify, our salvation is more valuable than this copy of the 10 Commandments, but this is a pretty good book too. Just wanted to clarify that from earlier. Karen, Shana, has a question here, 59 years old, is asking, is there a QSIP number for FP70? I don't want to accidentally buy the wrong thing.
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that to our attention. It has been added to our website. I won't give it over the air, of course, because the recommendations, the suggestions that we give on our buy list are for our partners only, but you can become a partner. It's just $132 a year. It's a great way to support this ministry. So even if you don't want to be your own financial advisor or investment manager, putting together your own portfolio using the asset allocation models, as a partner, you still have other benefits. So you get to use the portfolio tracker if you have somebody if you're not doing it yourself and you have somebody that is managing your portfolio for you, you can put in your positions and you can see how well you're adhering to the financial issues strategy. You also get to participate in the monthly partner conference calls. We get a little bit deeper. We get to say some things that we don't necessarily say over the air. We get to talk a little bit deeper about our strategy, about some of the things that's going on in the biblically responsible investing community, and of course with the ministry. And you also get to participate, you can do this whether you're a partner or not, I guess, but participate in the petitions that we do when we get involved, when we ask companies to cut it out, to quit supporting things that has nothing to do with running their business. And we encourage them just to operate in excellence, make a good product or service, and return value to their shareholders rather than engaging in the culture war. So you can, definitely be a part of that. And you can also, it's a way to help other people hear about our ministry. So, if you're listening today, if you're not listening for the first time, if you're coming back to listen again, we're still here because people are donating to the ministry, either with partnerships or as monthly soldiers, or one-time gifts, and all of those alternative ways of giving that we've been talking about. So partner alert, sell MA66. You can, if you don't want to sell them, if you got a capital gain in them, you can gift them to the ministry. We'll get rid of them for you. And you'll get a tax deduction, by the way. Well, folks, that's the end of the program today. Lord willing, we will be here tomorrow to remind you that time's getting short. The Master is coming back, and we're going to have a test about how we handled the time, talent, and treasure that we were trusted to manage. We want to be here to help you be found a good and faithful steward. So come back tomorrow for more financial issues. Check us out in the meantime and consider making a year-end gift at financialissues.org.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.